Okay, good evening. We'll call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Need to report out that in the previous closed session, the board took action to authorize the district superintendent or superintendent's designee to adopt a resolution 2018-19042 to notify up to 12 probationary certificated employees that they will be non-reelected for the 2019-2020 school year pursuant to Ed Code section 44929.21. The vote was 4 aye votes and 0 nay votes with 3 absent. Also, during the previous closed session, the board took action to authorize the district superintendent or superintendent's designee to adopt resolution 2018-19044 to notify one certificated administrator that he or she may be released from his or her position for the 2019-2020 school year pursuant to Ed Code section 44951. The vote was 4 yeses, 0 noes, and 3 absent. I have 2 items considered in closed session for action in open session. The first is expulsion case number 181919.
Move resolution 1819.
I second that.
Moved by Director Sheffield, second by Director Fong. Roll call vote, please.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Manieri?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Luckily, it's unanimous. Motion carries. Okay, and I need a motion on suspended expulsion 181919.
Move the suspended expulsion 181919. Was it 17 actually?
Actually, the first one is, they're both case number 181919.
So suspended expulsion.
Suspended expulsion 1819. Okay, same. Yep. 1919.
I second that motion.
Moved by Director Sheffield, second by Director Fong. Roll call vote, please.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director Fong? Director Manieri?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Motion carries. Statements of abstention. Seeing none. Adjustments to the agenda. C6 board member request for information. Okay, C7 approval of minutes of the regular board meeting held on February 13th, 2018.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting held on February 13th, 2019.
I'll second.
Moved by Director.
Except in the agenda, it's
Agenda
2018.
Excellent.
Do we need to put this
I
out?
just want to make sure that's right in the actual minutes. I think it is. It is correct in the minutes. Let's just make sure that your motion was for the
2019.
2019. Okay.
And second.
Moved by Director Fong, second by Director Sheffield. Roll call vote, please.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director Manieri? President Close?
Aye. Okay, motion carries, and that brings us to public comment on items not on the agenda. This is opportunity for the public to address the board on items not on the agenda. Each speaker will have 3 minutes each. Just as a reminder, we can't comment or engage in a discussion about the comments that you bring forward, but we are here to listen and glad you're here to share your thoughts with us. If you have a personnel matter, it is best to address that matter privately to Assistant Superintendent of HR, Stacy Spector, who is raising her hand. And if we can use both podiums up there. First, I have Mike Converse, and then second is Jim Ronan. After that is Micah Carlin Goldberg.
Good evening, President KLOSE, Superintendent Kitamura, and board. Come to you tonight not only as a teacher and member of SRTA, but also as a parent. I've watched the back and forth between SRTA and the district for about 18 years now. But yesterday I think I gained some valuable perspective. I'm also the son and grandson of teachers, third-generation teacher among being an amateur beekeeper. Grew up around principals, board members, even a superintendent or two. When I first arrived in Santa Rosa, I was happy to be employed back in 2001, but I started watching how things ran on Ridgeway Avenue, and not being used to such things, my three usual takeaways were, what on earth? Are you serious? Who does that? Well, it's been a while, but first let me put it into perspective. I think, if I may be so bold as to what I perceive as SRTA perspective. See, over 15 years ago, we had a superintendent that was notorious for intimidating employees, even keeping dossiers on troublemakers. Put Donald Trump in superintendent, you get the idea. But it's been a long time. I guess you could call it our own version of PTSD, but a lot of us still remember. Now that said, I'd like to move along to the acknowledgement of board policy that is due tomorrow. What got my dander up was the line of failure to sign or acknowledge will result in disciplinary action or including termination. Well, I made it my own personal mission to look into darn near each and every board policy and throw it right back this evening. The first version of the speech I threw away. See, while I was poking around, I started talking to people, but more importantly, I listened. Laurie Kolacek was more than pleasant, professional, albeit maybe a little curious as to why I was making all inquiries. Renee Jackson was the same. But they listened to me, I listened to them. I gained perspective. So Superintendent Kitamura, President KLOSE, Ms. Spector, we all need to be better listeners. I don't think I need to remind anybody that stakes are pretty high. It's most recent in Oakland. This is why we all need to be better listeners. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jim Ronan, then Micah Carlin Goldberg, and then Forrest Aretta.
Good evening. My name is Jim Ronan. I've been teaching at Santa Rosa Middle School since the turn of the century. When I moved to this area with 10 years of experience in 1998, I looked at the Santa Rosa City School salary schedule and did not bother applying. Instead, I took a job in Marin. 2 years later, the Santa Rosa School Board decided to raise the number of years they would accept on the salary schedule from 5 to 10. This is when I applied. I was attracted by the better salary. It made it worth my while. Not long after that, we received what I still consider our only raise, 9%. Thank you, Gray Davis. I had full health care coverage for myself and my family. I felt valued and valuable. Why do I call it our only raise, you ask? Well, we have gotten smaller raises, which maybe covered the cost of living increases, but they in no way covered the amount that I paid and continue to pay to Kaiser every month. The amount that the district pays to Kaiser is about 1/3 of what I pay. Currently, I am paying over $1,000 a month for district-sponsored health care out of my own pocket. When I or any member of my family goes to see the doctor, we still have to pay at the reception desk and usually pay later as well. Mathematically, I've been taking a pay cut since that raise. We are asking you to value your teachers with something more than a cost of living raise. We are also asking to raise the amount that the district puts in for health care. It would be great if you put in enough so we could be accepted into the CalPERS program and have a better rate and another choice besides Kaiser, who has us over a proverbial barrel. In doing both of these things, you would also be addressing the attract and retain issue. I also do not appreciate the emails that I have received from the district office concerning negotiations with the SRTA. They seem to me to be aimed at sowing dissent amongst SRTA members by shedding doubt on the amount of money our union states that the district has, which is enough to give us what we are asking for. I wish we could all at least agree on the dollar amounts involved. Considering the district office's recent multi-million-dollar mathematical error, when it comes to facts and figures, I'm sticking with the union. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Micah Carlin Goldberg, followed by Forrest Arata, followed by Christine Erkin.
Good evening. My name is Micah Carlin Goldberg. I teach 6th grade at Steel Lane Elementary. I can afford to teach in this district because my wife's health care pays for our family. Her employer pays nearly $1,900 a month towards our family of 5. I know this because when we had our twins, we decided to have her stay home longer, and we ended up paying their part of the health care for that last month. If I was the person providing health care for our family, we couldn't afford it. Every week almost in my staff room, somebody talks about skipping going to the doctor, going light on their meds, skipping an evaluation for a known medical condition because they can't afford to go and get assessed every month like they're supposed to, like the doctor orders. They have to wait and go every 6 months because that's what they can afford on our healthcare plan. I have people in my site who say that they have told their children, if you get injured, tell them no, you're not getting in the ambulance and I will come get you because I can't afford to pay for the ride. We need to do better. Additionally, pardon me, we have a counselor at Santa Rosa High School who is currently under attack from our administration from what I have seen for things that are really minor. For speaking up for our students. This is, I think, the 6th or 7th time I've spoken to the school board in the last 2 years. Generally, I've been talking about misuse of bond funds because we've spent nearly $250,000 on ticket booths and AV equipment and fancy lighted signs instead of heating and cooling for our school sites. We have a classroom at our site who's been without heat for a couple weeks. They keep trying to fix it, but it hasn't happened yet. So my question for the board is, how many more times am I going to be allowed to speak to you before somebody at the district office puts pressure on the principal or contacts me directly and asks me to close my mouth? Thank you.
Forrest Arata, and then Christine Erkin, and then Barbara Gay. Forrest?
As a high school counselor, I work with students every day. I support them academically, personally, and in planning the next steps for their future with college and career. I encourage my students to get involved in sports, maybe a foreign exchange program, and extracurriculars. Yet, my own children cannot play on school teams like cheer because we can't afford the costs. My children cannot go into a foreign exchange program. They cannot attend a summer preparatory college program. We do not even have the money to buy fancy dresses for them to go to their school dances. My husband and I make too much money to receive any financial aid for our daughters to go to college. And we make too little to save a college fund for them. We have to choose. Either we try to help our kids with college, or we save for our own retirement. And a family vacation, that's not even an option for us. Santa Rosa City Schools employees need more pay and fully funded health care. Stop asking us to do more with less. Stop pawning off district and school board responsibilities and blaming us for the district's financial problems. Put yourselves on the line. Support all of our students and pay your employees a living wage. If the state has to step in because there isn't enough money in reserves, wouldn't you want all of us, your grateful employees, to have your back if that happened? Because if you support us like we deserve, we will be there for you, and you know there's power in numbers. Thank you.
Kristen Erkin and then Barbara Gay.
Hi there. Christine Erkin, a counselor at Santa Rosa Charter School for the Arts, and I'm here reading a speech on behalf of another Santa Rosa City School employee. Could not read tonight. I'd like to begin by thanking Santa Rosa City Schools for paying me to do the job I love, working with children. My thoughts tonight center around healthcare. I decided to join SRCS's medical plan for the 2018-2019 school year. I wanted to opt in to help Santa Rosa City Schools hopefully get a better plan for their employees. I dropped my individual plan through Kaiser that cost $750 a month for my child and myself. Santa Rosa City School pays for dental insurance for employees. I pay for vision benefits through our district that costs about $25 a month. This year, we both needed glasses. Our vision coverage paid for the eye exam, but does not cover glasses. This year, my child needed braces. Nothing was covered by our dental plan. This year, I needed a root canal, but after paying for my cleanings and a filling, there were $0 left to go toward the root canal. This year, we needed to go to the doctor for illnesses. Due to the deductible, we paid out of pocket. When I worked on my taxes this month, I saw the total out-of-pocket cost for medical, dental, and vision totaled over $12,500 out of pocket. Therefore, I'm paying about $1,800 a month to take care of my child and my own basic health needs. I'm here to beg, plead, ask, no, I'm here to demand that Santa Rosa City Schools pays 100% of health care for its employees and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Barbara Gay.
Yeah, my name is Barbara Gay. I am a special education teacher at Cook Middle School, and I want to talk also about compensation. In some research that I've done recently, I found a statistic that almost 15% of other college graduates, other than teachers, make more than what teachers make. I hope I said that clearly. But we're not mere college graduates. We have a bachelor's degree in a specific area, and we have 2 more years, which in my mind is equivalent to a master's degree. So why are we being paid almost 15% less than other average Californians who have college degrees? I found myself this summer having to select what I could pay for myself. I need to pay my mortgage, I need to pay certain bills, but then I had some dental problems, and I had to choose, will I pay them, will I put them off? So I ended up putting half of it off until I could save up the money and pay for it, since the cost wouldn't be covered by the compensation benefits that we receive. And so I had to make some tough choices and put up with a lot of pain, literally physical pain in my mouth. Other statistics show that other districts in California are able to pay more, quite a bit more than what this district pays. If I understand correctly, most of the districts get their money from the state of California. How are other districts able to pay their teachers and staff better salaries and better benefits than this district? I'm thinking it may be, like my dentist bill, a matter of choice of what the money is spent on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a CSEA report next. President Alfonso.
Good evening. I'm going to save my report for item E9.
Thank you. And D2 SRTA report, President Lyon.
Good evening, President Klose, Superintendent Kitamura, members of the board. I'm William Lyon. I'm the president of Santa Rosa Teachers Association. I wanted to spend some time tonight responding to the offer of the communication task force. That's the main thrust. But before that, I wanted to mention that the report from bargaining chair Catherine Howell is that they had a productive day and that it was a respectful offer and that it was helpful. So thank you for that. Last week, President Klose offered an opportunity to participate in a communication task force. It feels something like a restorative justice circle. And I'm personally conflicted about it because I believe deep in my bones that if the adults get along, the students will have better outcomes. But I also am not 100% convinced that that particular offer was genuine, at least not the way it was asked. It felt like it was more about maximizing our no than increasing our ability to say yes. But that aside, the reason our answer is no isn't because of how I feel. It's because our executive board voted not to participate at this time, as they also voted not to participate in the Labor Management Collaborative at this time. And I think you deserve an explanation. So I'd like to tell you what the drawbacks are, what the barriers are, and see if we can get through some of those barriers. A reminder for people who have been around, we have some new people around. We had a committee called the TADCOM Committee, which was a teacher advisory committee. I don't know when it started. I think it's something like 15 or 20 years, more than that. When I got into leadership in the union, it was well established, and that was 2007. So I don't know how long before that, but it was well established at that time. And the reason that it was established was because at that time, it felt to the members like the school board wasn't getting the full picture, that the district leadership at that time wasn't telling them everything they needed to know to make decisions. And I think we can all agree that the school board can only make decisions based on the information that they have, which I think is why you guys have mentioned over and over that you want to hear from teachers, is that you want the information so you can make the best decisions possible. I understand there were some issues with TADCOM. It wasn't perfect, but in a lot of ways it served the need of open communication between board members and teachers that wasn't in a highly amplified forum, and it was an opportunity to solve problems at the lowest level. I understand it wasn't always effective at solving those problems, but that committee existed for a long time before I came around. The school district unilaterally canceled that committee over the objections of the teachers. And our objections were that, well, where are we going to have these conversations that aren't in public, that aren't, high pressure? We also have what's called a Labor Management Collaborative. That was put in place shortly after the 2015, what I call the 5% is fair year, which was brutal. I mean, it was just really got ugly on all sides, and everybody felt uncomfortable about it. I can say generally, and I think this is true for every single adult in this business on whatever side of the table, nobody got into this to fight with adults. We got into it to help kids, and that's where we want to be at. And the LMC was an opportunity to do that. At first, it was really about mending fences and building relationships, and I think it was really helpful at that. But then when we got into the problem-solving phase of LMC, it wasn't that useful in solving problems. And in fact, I would say it was sometimes used as political cover to be able to say, oh, look, we're playing nice together over here, while over here it wasn't so nice. I won't go very far into it, but one example of that is the way we decided to change our graduation requirements. If that was a real committee that was designed to solve problems, that would have been a great place to have those conversations, but we didn't have them. Flash forward to this year, and I felt for the first quarter, maybe a little past that, I thought things were going pretty well. Everybody was getting along, we're learning a lot, there's a lot of stuff that we got to get through, but I would characterize the first quarter as professional and collaborative and caring on both sides. That got a little tougher when we started negotiating, but I don't think it was over there. I think there was a lot of the sort of normal tit for tats that happened, but I wouldn't characterize it as nasty until December. And in December, one of our champions, somebody that we respect and love and think is really great, came out and had been out asking tough questions about A through G. The way the A through G went, it was tough on some people. It was specifically tough on, well, it's been tough on students, some of them, especially struggling students. It's been tough on math teachers, and we knew some of that. What surprised me was how tough it was on counselors. And the way counselors work, they're like the referee. They don't get to decide what board policy is, but they have to know the rule because they're applying that rule with kids. So when a kid comes in and says, what do I need to graduate? And I'm like, well, you need to do this. I'm like, I can't do that. What do I do? What are the supports? And that puts a lot of pressure on those counselors. When those kids come in and they're really sad about it and they're really worried and anxious, they go to the counselor. And the counselors usually have all these tools in their toolbox to help those kids get through those tough times. We don't have all those tools yet in the toolbox. We've got some that we've talked about. We've got some that we tried, but we couldn't hire the people. And we got some that are being discussed at the bargaining table now. But for this very first year, it's been a hard transition, and a lot of that's landed on counselors, partially because the decision was made so late. They had already educated all the 8th graders and their parents about those graduation requirements, that it's made it super tough for them. So we have one of our leaders who is a counselor and who is also an elected leader on our executive board representing all of secondary teachers. And in that role, she's asking tough questions. And she's criticizing some of the decisions that have been made. That's protected under the law. We have the right to disagree with the boss, right? The union is co-equal to the district on negotiations. We have the right to negotiate the changes to our working conditions under the law, and we have the right to consult on curriculum. That's the law. We weren't given those opportunities, and it really had a high impact on secondary students, secondary teachers, and on counselors. So the way we view that is it's a threat to our union. If we have protected actions under the law that we're being terminated for or threatened to be terminated for, trying to be silenced for, that is a threat. And it demands a response from the union. So that's why we have to say no at this time to the LMC and to the Communication Task Force. It's a package deal. We have to be treated with respect over here if we're going to be collaborative and caring and loving over here. We have to be able to do both. I think that we can do both. I talked to Stacey Spector about a week ago, and I threw out some ideas about a truce, like how do we tone this down, how do we back off a little bit so that we can do all the other important work that we have to do. The word crickets comes to mind. Haven't heard anything back on that, but the offer stands there. If we could figure out a way to back off on the tone and the mood on both sides and focus back on all the other things that we have to do and remove the threat from all union members who are now afraid that if they speak out, they'll get terminated. And we've had some other issues where there have been threats of termination that probably didn't have to be there. If we could back some of that off, and if we could figure out a way to make sure that we are on the same page before we make big decisions, that would make it not only easier to do some of these other committees, but that would make it functional, make it helpful, and it would be better outcomes for students. So I hope that you'll consider the idea of a truce on the silencing union leader stuff. And I say that because it's not really about that one member. I mean, it kind of is. You're trying to fire somebody that we care about. We don't like that. but you're also threatening to silence everybody else who has tough questions or who disagree with you about policy choices. And that's not healthy for the district or for students or for the union. And so I'm saying no, excuse me, SRTA is saying no on the Communication Task Force and the LMC until we can solve some of these tone and mood and respect issues. And we're eager to do it. But until we do, we're going to have to defend our members and our rights under the contract and the law. Thank you.
We're going to take a 10-minute break. will turn to our superintendent for her report. Oh, LMC report.
President
Sorry.
Close, members of
My
the board.
apologies.
That's okay. LMC report, we will continue to meet. We have an upcoming meeting later in March, and we have invited members to attend the Labor Management Initiative Conference that's coming up March 11th and 12th, and CSEA is pulling together a team who have already committed to attending that learning and bringing back their learning to the group.
Thank you, and now the superintendent.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I want to speak a little bit about what President Lyon spoke to, and that was about negotiations today. He mentioned how he got a report back about how it went today, and I concur with what he reported by saying the same thing, that I think both teams have worked so hard to get to the point that they are right now. I encourage you to look at your email. There's some communications in there that will speak specifically to some of the things we heard in the public comment. One of the things that I would like to say as I start this out is that, and I'll speak for me, not necessarily the board, but just for me, it's such an odd situation to be in the position I am in as a public figure, where information is thrown at me or there's information going on that I can't really address because of laws and regulations that bound me to say anything. And so many times you may come up with, or someone may approach me with information or a question. I'm not able to answer that for various reasons. But I will tell you that up front, that I can't answer it. But I have to address a couple of things. The gentleman who talked about CalPERS, we wanted to desperately move to CalPERS because it is a more cost-efficient program, healthcare program, but it requires 100% participation. So as President Lyon said, those are some things we have to work together on because I don't think the membership can do that at this point. So again, I want to point that out. The other thing is that I really want to applaud and recognize the team that I work with in Santa Rosa City Schools. We have been, and I'm going to say since Rick came aboard and took over the position of Chief Business Official, and along with Joel Dantos and then his team, that the numbers for enrollment, the numbers, any kind of number you can think of, and I might have said this before, felt somewhat elusive to me. Like I just needed reference points to be sure that those were the numbers. And I think that with his work, along with some other entities, that the enrollment projection numbers that we came up with on February 13th are something that we can really stand upon and know that those are the numbers. Having said that, those numbers then drive everything that we do in the district with regard to revenue, staffing, expenses, all of that. And so what I want to commend the team for is that we have worked so hard to get to the point of today during negotiations to present what we presented. And so again, I encourage you to take a look at that. It was an email that you can see that went out that has all the particulars. So yes, thank you to both the negotiations team for SRTA. Thank you to the SRCS negotiations team. I look forward, they are going to be meeting again on March 7th, and I look forward for the two teams coming together to get resolution. And I hope President Lyon to really talk about how we can get things done for kids. Okay, next. I want to let everybody know that for the first time since I've been here in my 6 years, we brought together what I'm calling the Santa Rosa 9. They like to use the term Nifty Niners, but I don't know, I'm a secondary person, and Nifty Niners just sounds, I can't quite take it into my brain. So the Santa Rosa 9 are the 8 feeder districts that feed into Santa Rosa City Schools. And for many years, and in fact, when I first came here, they all would see me and kind of run the other direction. And I'm like, what is this about? I mean, we should be talking together because they feed to our district. Lo and behold, we've developed a relationship where last week, the Santa Rosa 9 or the Santa Rosa 8 superintendents came to Santa Rosa School, and we were able to share with them the wonderful work we're doing in this district around curriculum, around all the different facets of curriculum in student services, in special education, in English language development, just, share the whole thing. They were amazed. We invited them to any professional developments that we offer because as I said then, and I will continue to say, their kids are our kids are their kids. We're all together. What we found out is that the kids who come from those districts are not necessarily tagged because we want to be able to provide those districts information back about how their 7th graders are doing, how their 8th graders are doing as they come to 9th graders, and what's their graduation rate and what does that look like. And we're so excited. I think we're going to end up doing some MOUs for data transfer. So I wanted to share that because that's a big movement for Santa Rosa City Schools and with the Santa Rosa 9. So I'll keep you posted on more to come for that. They specifically asked, can we articulate with, for example, Slater? Can our 6th grade teachers articulate with the Slater school? And we were like, yes, absolutely. So more to come on that. And then finally, I want to announce the student winners for the Skills USA regional contest. Couldn't be more prouder of our students who participated. And so commercial baking, Maria Cruz High School, Cassidy Trejo, Gold Award. Pioneer High School, Nayeli Orozco, Silver Award. Culinary Arts, Maria Cruz High School, Cassandra Hernandez, Gold Award. Introductory Woodworking, Santa Rosa High School, Justin McManus, a Gold Award. Cabinetry, Santa Rosa High School, Hannah Kemper, 4th, and Hannah was here at the last meeting. And then welding, oxyacetylene, Santa Rosa High School, Matthew Placentia, a Gold Award. So let's give it up for them. That's awesome. And Director Cardozo, do these students move on to the state now? All of them. All of these students move on to the state level. So that's great. Congratulations. And Santa Rosa High School students, they sell the most wonderful woodwork in the office. So go buy and buy some from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. So it's the board president report. I will start by saying that I'm excited to go on Friday to spend the day in Sacramento with CSBA for my first meeting as part of the CSBA Legislative Committee. I'm really honored to have been appointed to that committee and excited to get to work on CSBA's agenda on a statewide level, which really is led by the number one priority, which is getting full and fair funding for our schools. Monday morning, I spent about an hour and a half with the Tomorrow's Leaders Today kids right here on their government day. I try to go every year, and it's one of my favorite things to do as a board member. And the kids are super engaged. They have the best questions. Anywhere I go for Q&A sessions, the TLT kids ask the best questions of them all. And they ask rapid fire questions. We went through lots of topics and lots of questions, and so many that they kept us over for about extra 20 minutes. And it was really fun to see them so engaged and so interested in how the school district works and what board members do, and answering their specific questions about stuff that goes on with their education. So that was a great experience, and I'm always grateful for that. Third, with respect to this offer of a communications task force, this is an offer I've been making for a year. It's not a political stunt. It's been made one-on-one. It's been made in writing. It's been made in public. This will be the 4th time it's been made in public. It is an offer for all stakeholder groups, CSEA, SRTA, admin, and the board to come together and work with a professional to help solve some of the problems in communication that have existed, as far as I understand, for decades. And they have certainly existed the entire time that TADCOM existed. It is a genuine offer. It's not just an offer. I am begging for this. And I don't need more to do in my life. But I'd be real happy to spend time on this. To just kind of repeat some history, and it's unfortunate that we have to address this, but I feel like it's unfair for the people in the room to not get to hear the whole history. And that is that TADCOM did exist for about 15 years. It was met, there were different opinions on how well it worked. But a couple years ago, the board eliminated all board committees. And that was a board committee. And that was on recommendation from CSBA and board consultants that say that board committees that are problematic in different ways. And it wasn't to shut down teachers at all. And obviously, I think we're all pretty responsive to teachers when they want to talk to us. You come here. There are lots of meetings between teachers and board members, teachers and admin. And it was soon after that that the LMC was started, and that I offered to form some kind of communication task force to figure out how we can do that better. Because the entire time that TADCOM existed, so did this toxic relationship. So that clearly was not working, and it also didn't include CSEA. So really, I'm saying let's try to find something better. Let's try something better. This is a genuine offer, and I'm disappointed that it would be suggested that it is otherwise. And I hope that SRTA will accept. I hope that you will understand that doing nothing is certainly not going to help anything, and take some kind of leap of faith and accept this offer and join all of us and try to create some better solutions. A few people have asked me what my specific goals would be with this, and my answer to that is I don't want to have specific goals, actually, because I don't want this to be mine at all. That's why I want a third-party professional to facilitate, someone who does this as their job, so that it's not mine, and it's not the superintendent's, and it's not Mr. Lyons, and it's not President Afonso's. It is ours. So I don't even want to say what my prescribed goals are, but somehow that we could communicate and get along better. In general, I think that would be some real progress. And the last thing I'm going to address is that, we cannot comment on an ongoing personnel matter. It's confidential. And so someone could say anything, and we would just have to listen and not say anything. And so it seems a little below the belt in that way. You can make any accusations you want, and we can't respond. So I would just remind everybody that personnel matter is confidential, totally. And I will repeat what I said the last time here, which is that nobody on this board and nobody on this administration would ever retaliate against a staff member for exercising his or her free speech rights, for advocating for students. That would not happen. And I personally, as a person who's taken an oath to serve on this board and who's taken an oath for the Bar Association to follow the law, and who spent the first half of her legal career actually bringing employee cases against employers for things like retaliation, including one against a junior college by 3 teachers, would never engage in such conduct. So I would assure you that you are not looking at a group of people who would retaliate against you for speaking your mind. And with that, I will turn it over to board member reports, and we'll start with Director Sheffield.
I will be brief. A few weeks back was the first meeting of the Sonoma County Committee on School District Organization. At the meeting, we swore in new members, Jeremy Brott, Jennifer Wildermuth, and a friendly face, Frank Pugh. It was great to see Frank. Hasn't missed a beat, right back in the swing of things. We also elected or re-elected officers for the board, Chair Bassett Fernandez and Vice Chair James DeWilder. There were a couple other items brought up at the meeting. We discussed the town of Windsor and district elections and how this could impact the school district in Windsor as well. We've done it. Maybe we can offer our expertise, not just to the school district if this is the way they're going, but also with the town of Windsor. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Director Fong.
So this is a little different report, and I just want to respond to tell you that I love being on the board. I love talking about education. I love looking at all the schools and the kids and listening to the teachers and everybody, all staff. And it's a passion, and I want to continue this for a while. And so it's important for us to keep getting perspectives. And I know that some of the frustrations that we're hearing are about maybe people aren't feeling heard. And it's hard sometimes to do it in public comment because it's nerve-wracking. First of all, you don't have that much time. Secondly, and who wants to come down to a board meeting on Wednesday night sometimes. So, I invite you, and I think my colleagues are also going to invite you to continue to just communicate with us. However you want to communicate with us. I've been out to more coffee dates than I love coffee, so that's good. But, that's good, and we want to hear these perspectives. So I will say that I am convinced that we do not pay educators enough, period. Period, end of story. We don't pay them enough. We don't provide for them enough. There's many, many things, the health benefits you talked about tonight. So, all of us are on that side that there's not enough, and all of us need to look at the whole picture. So everybody comes to us with a slice of a pie, right? Your slice of your perspective. And I had a perspective too. As a teacher, I had a perspective. As a principal, I had a perspective. As a parent, I had a perspective. And now at the school board, we have the satellite perspective that we have to look at the entire pie with all the pieces to it. And, there's always a cost to something. So you have some of this, you have less of this. And so I promise you that your board, and I can only speak for myself, but knowing these people, that we are acting with integrity and that we want to keep listening. And when there's so much upset, there's a kernel there that I want to keep ferreting out and keep listening. So I promise you that we will be listening.
Thank you. Director Manieri.
I will also be brief and ditto to everything Director Fong just said. Earlier in the month, I was invited by Tosa Bonnie Rains, who heads a project called Listening for a Change, to speak to an English class at Slater Middle School, and that was a really great experience. I'm really thankful for Mrs. Rains for inviting me and being a part of that really cool project. I also attended at the Arlene Francis Center an event called Sex Education for Our Times. And I wasn't there as a board member, but I do want to mention this because I saw educators there, teachers there, and I just really want to say that I'm really glad to see them being represented at these conversations, A couple weeks ago, several of us were at the Los 100 luncheon, where Director Medina, who's not here today, did an amazing job on the panel talking about Latinos in politics and kind of his experience with becoming a member of this board. So I just want to give him some recognition for that. He did a great job. And then over the weekend, I went to a board member boot camp that the Sonoma County Office of Education hosted, and it was really great. And so I'm just really grateful for that opportunity that the Sonoma County Office of Education provided, and it was completely free. So that's it.
Director Mackin.
So this past Monday, I was able to attend the specialist certificate meeting, and we were able to hear the Stanford K-12 Design Lab give a really, really interesting, very deep dive into equity in education. So hoping to use that and move forward with our project. Also, we have some student surveys going out later this month, but yes.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that I also spent some time speaking to the Chamber's Leadership Santa Rosa class on Education Day, and just want to thank the Chamber for giving us opportunity to talk about our district and education whole and the funding problem in education. We spent a lot of time on that. Okay, so we're going to go to the consent agenda. I am pulling E9 because we have a blue card on E9 from President Fonzo, and otherwise I need a motion on E1 through 8 and E10 through 12.
I move approval of the consent items E1 through 8 and E9 through 12.
10 through 12.
We're
10
pulling
through
E-
12.
Okay, so the motion is approval of.
1 through 8 and E10 through 12.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Director Fong, second by Director Sheffield. Roll call vote, please.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director Manieri? President Close?
Aye.
Director Mackin?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Then, so we'll go to E9. Approval of proposed new custodial manager position and job description. I don't know if staff wants to address it before I call the blue card. No, okay. So President Alfonso, proceed.
Good evening, President Close, Superintendent Kitamura, and school board members, student board member. CSEA would like to ask that you consider not creating this new position at this time. We understand the possible need, but we also understand that our positions have not been refilled since 1988. We have positions still that need to be filled in the Department of Maintenance and Operation, of electricians, painters, carpenters, plumbers, locksmith, irrigation, and custodial. To create another supervisory position at this time when our positions still are not being brought back, and this is the pre-furlough days and layoffs, seems wrong. Employees have taken on additional work. The schools are not painted. There's continual electrician problems, HVAC problems. Those are starting to being addressed now. Plumbing problems, grounds problems, part of it being the lack of employees. So before we create a new supervisory position, please reconsider and reinstate all of the positions that need to be brought back. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I need if staff doesn't want to respond, I want to, or have any information, then I need a motion on E9.
Do we need to make a motion so we can even talk about it?
Right. We can make a motion and then call for discussion, yes.
All right, I move that what's the motion? Do we approve?
You can make whatever motion
I'd like to move that we make this a discussion item first. That's a motion?
It's a motion.
Okay.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Sure, I'll second that.
The motion is to discuss the item.
It's consent.
All right, it's been moved by Director Fong to pull the item for discussion and second by Director Sheffield. So
That's how you say it.
with that, I will ask if anyone has questions or comments for staff.
So we just heard the CSEA union lead say that we didn't need this until we filled other positions. Can you talk to us more about that and help fill that in for us so we can understand it?
Good evening to the board and Superintendent Kitamura. I'm going to ask Eric Oden, Director of Maintenance and Operation, to talk about the need for this position in relation to the work that he is overseeing.
Thank you very much, Rick. I can't speak to I've only been here a little over a year, so I can't speak to something from 1988. Is it on? Yeah. I can't speak to anything from 1988. I don't know how to address that one. I can only tell you the need that I wrote in this agenda item for the supervisory position for night custodial staff, as we have almost 60 people at night working unsupervised. So I would love the help, since it's just me And I have custodial staff basically running from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. 5 days a week. So that's why I helped create this position.
With your permission, Director Fong, on the larger level, we don't discount that we have vacancies in custodial and that they are hard to fill positions, and we continue to partner with CSA on ideas on how to fill those positions. To Eric's point, though, we need to provide supervision and monitoring of all of our sites. An example is that we're actually doing without at the district office in regards to some essential functions for custodial, because we know first and foremost we need to support our schools, and this supervisory position allows for that to happen while we continue to aggressively find and recruit custodial staff to staff all of our schools and buildings both day and night.
Any other questions or comments?
So one of the major duties of this person would be to supervise night crews. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, as well as help to, this position hasn't existed for some time, at least from a supervisory role, to help us standardize both product, chemicals, and training of custodial. We get custodians that come hired, and there's not much from training as far as from a standardization point of view. So they just kind of go to a school and are trained on site at a school by the day custodian, who kind of overlaps them by about 30 minutes a day. So this would be a tremendous help to the cleanliness of our schools to be able to provide this.
Thank you.
So you've been on the position, you said, for a little over a year, is that correct?
Yes, I started in January of last year.
Okay, and it's just been you basically filling this entire position?
Yes, I have under maintenance and operations, I have over 100 and almost 20 people. I have one supervisor for maintenance, which is great, but that's not operations, that's not custodians.
So the job description, I guess, that you came into was meeting everything as it is now, no?
It is. I think I had an assumption that there was a custodial supervisor or manager due with the fact the amount of people, but there wasn't. So I've been kind of working with the help of Mr. Edson as well and Stacy Spector to help create this position to help facilitate the need for custodial, which is a big part of my department with no nighttime supervision whatsoever, as well as just the ability to standardize that cleaning process to make our sites cleaner.
So when
overall.
you need support, I guess, meeting a body there, what do you do? Who do you turn to, and how is that?
I turn to my maintenance supervisor, who's here with me, Mr. Harden. He and I, our cell phones are on 24 hours a day. Yeah. I mean, that's what we do. We do everything we can. And the site principals help as well, but they are also, you know, they have all their students and staff to worry about as well. So everyone pitches in to do the best they can, but I just think there's something missing, and I want to make the sites cleaner, a lot cleaner.
Okay, and then there was something that you alluded to, is that, you know, this wasn't a position before, but perhaps it had been a position at one time, is that?
I had heard, you know, that there was a kind of a half custodial supervisor, half safety coordinator position that was eliminated maybe sometime before the 08 economy downturn. And since then it hasn't, there's been no one.
Thank you.
So having had experience at a site, nighttime custodial crews, I can see that there's an absolute need. We also have the need for painters and locksmiths and so on. So I don't equate these. You can have one or you can't have the other like that, but obviously the need is there for other personnel, which I assume we are working to reinstate what we can.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that additional information, and I certainly hear your frustration, President Alfonso, and I am sure that we do need to fortify our our maintenance and custodial staff, but it does sound like there's a need for this position, at least in my opinion. If there are no other questions or comments, then
So I'll make a motion to approve. Let's see. Approval of proposed new custodial manager position and job description.
I second.
Moved by Director Fong, seconded by Director Manieri. Roll call vote, please.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Manieri?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye.
Director Mackin?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries, and that brings us to our action items tonight, or F items. F1, approval of resolution recognizing March 2019 as National Women's History Month, or Herstory, as some call it.
President Close, we bring this item before you, as it says, in recognition of National Women's History Month. I think all of us know and admire different women in our life who have been role models and who have helped us become who we are. I ask that we remember those wonderful people, those wonderful women, their leadership, their strength, their ability to what I would say, juggle many different things at one time. Not that men can't do that, but just the way in which I think my own mother handled how she raised a family and worked full time. I mean, I think there's just story after story from those women who, you know, are super, super famous, but those women who are super famous in our hearts. And so with that, I turn this over to the board.
Any questions or comments, not questions, but comments about this item? Or a motion, it's an action item. Director Fong.
I move approval of the resolution recognizing March 2019 as National Women's History Month.
I second.
Moved by Director Fong, second by Director Manieri. Is there any discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please, then.
Director Fong? Director Manieri?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye.
Director Mackin?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you for bringing that forward. F2, an action item, English Learner Program and Services Update and approval of new reclassification criteria.
Good evening, President Close, Superintendent Kitamura, members of the board. Tonight I have with me Director Araceli Romo Flores, who's going to take us through the English Learner Report and also talk about the new reclassification guidelines and hopefully get approval from the board. So with that, I turn it over to Director Flores.
Good evening, everyone. So I'd like to start off by first sharing our district enrollment numbers. And so as you can see on the slide, we have 15,930 students enrolled in Santa Rosa City Schools, and there's the breakout by elementary and secondary. And we have 3,461 English learners, and you have the breakout there by elementary and secondary. And those are based on our CalPADS numbers from October of 2018, so this school year. So therefore, we have 22% of our total population is made up of English learners. And just to review, to make sure that everyone understands how we identify English learners, is that when students get registered at a school, the parents fill out with their registration packet, but they also fill out a home language survey. And in that home language survey, if they respond to those questions that they speak a language other than English in the home, we must provide a language proficiency assessment to the students to check on their proficiency levels in English. And so in the past, that test has been the California English Language Development Test, or what we refer to as the CELT. And now we are using a new assessment, which is called the English Language Proficiency Assessment for California, or the LPAC. And so we use that assessment, and if students score well on that assessment, they are considered initial fluent English proficient students. If they do not score well on that proficiency assessment, then they are considered English learners, and they remain English learners until they can meet the district's reclassification criteria, which we are bringing forward tonight as well. So of our 3,461 English learners, 827 of those students are considered long-term English learners. And so that's 23.9% of our English learners that are considered long-term English learners. And this means that they've been in our school for 6 years or more, and they have not progressed in their English language acquisition, and so they continue to be considered English learners. And so those are our students that we identify as long-term English learners, 6 years or more in a U.S. school and have not progressed in their English proficiency. So we as educators have a dual obligation to our English learners. We must provide meaningful access to grade level academic content via appropriate instruction, and that's what the state calls integrated ELD, or integrated English language development. And we must also develop students' academic English language proficiency, and that is specifically targeted during the designated English language development time. And so this year, as you know, our high school district was monitored via the Federal Program Monitoring Review. And we had some findings for our English learners. And this is one of the findings that they have instructed us to address, and that is access to core subject matter. So the finding was that newcomer students are not provided with grade level core content instruction in our district, and English learners do not meet the district's content and performance standards for the respective grade levels. So that's a finding that we have been charged to address. And before moving forward with our corrective actions, I would just like to read to you what the Department of Justice and the Department of Education put out as a joint statement. It is crucial to the future of our nation that English learners and all students have equal access to a high-quality education and the opportunity to achieve their full academic potential. And this is truly a shared belief. When we wrote our English Learner Master Plan, this was at the forefront of how we operated. We wanted to make sure we were providing this for our students. And because many districts have failed in that area, there's now a new law, and this new law was signed into action in September of 2018, and it became effective January of this year. And it's basically a law that prohibits English learner students from being denied enrollment in core curricular courses, courses required for high school graduation, or courses for purposes of recognition for college admission, such as advanced placement or honors courses. And again, this law took effect on January 1st of this year. And I just want to commend this board and thank you for your courageous leadership of adopting our new graduation requirements that make it possible that all of our English learners have access to the core content. We were ahead of the game and didn't need this mandate to do the right thing. And so I just want to applaud you for that. So our corrective action, we have, like I said, the new graduation requirements for all students, as you know, since you created those, and again, grateful for that change. And professional development opportunities for all teachers. We have contracted with Tanya Ward Singer, for example, to provide some targeted English language professional development for all of our teachers. And we've been inviting them to participate in different offerings. And we've also done work with, and we hope to continue to do some work with BOP to support our English language learners. And we have purchased a resource for all of our teachers. It's called EL Excellence Every Day, which is Tanya Ward Singer's latest book, and have made sure that we have a copy for every teacher, and we've provided principals with some support to roll out those resources to the sites. As you know, we also are bringing forward new courses. We needed to provide designated ELD to all of our English learners. That was one of our findings. We were only providing English language development to our newcomers, but we were not offering it to all English learners, which is a requirement. And so we thank you for approving those courses that we have brought forward to you today, and are excited to be able to offer those new courses to all of our English learners next year. And we are also in the process of identifying, this week, in fact, we have different designated ELD programs at the district office where we've invited teachers to come and review the programs, and yesterday the vendors were there for any Q&A from teachers, and we're asking teachers to vote for the 2 programs that they would like us to pilot. And so we will be piloting this spring the 2 programs that rise to the top, and we hope to have an adoption for next year so that we can provide teachers with the training, and in those programs we are making sure that what we select has a strong assessment program to it. Another finding is the English language development. Like I mentioned, we were found out of compliance there because we were only providing, at most of our schools, we were only providing designated ELD or designated English language development to our newcomers. And again, we have to provide designated ELD to all students, regardless of how proficient they are. If they are identified as English learners and they have not met the reclassification criteria, they must be provided designated ELD until they're reclassified. So that was one of our findings. And the other finding was that materials are not grade level aligned nor based on the Common Core state standards. And so, as I mentioned, in terms of our corrective actions, we do have the new courses that you have now approved. We are committed to providing daily high-quality ELD instruction. We are looking forward to providing quality ELD materials and training and using those genuine formative assessments to guide our instruction frequently. And so, the California ELD standards, I just want to make sure everyone understands that we do have state-adopted California ELD standards, and they are critical to supporting our English learners' knowledge of language and also content, academic language to access content. And so those standards are strong, and in fact, California has been received lots of praise from the other states in the nation because our ELD standards are really nicely aligned with our ELA standards. And so many states have followed in California's footsteps. So they are strong ELD standards, and we're excited that we're going to be, we'll have a program to help us implement those standards or address those standards. And who should be using the California ELD standards to support our English learners? So California ELD standards are to be used by all content area teachers as well as ELD teachers or English language development teachers to ensure support for our EL students. In our district, we're fortunate that 99% of our teachers have their CLAD, so they are certified to teach our English learners. So this is just a little graph to explain the difference between integrated and designated ELD. Integrated ELD is to happen throughout the school day. The instructional focus is content with language to support the content, but the standards used are content standards and ELD standards. Whereas in designated ELD, it's a separate period, a separate time. It's protected portion of the day where the instructional focus is language and the standards used are ELD standards. I didn't mention this as a finding, but this is also a finding. One of the findings was that EL students with IEPs must receive ELD, English language development, and how they receive the ELD is dictated in the IEP. And so it needs to be documented in terms of how they will be providing the designated ELD. But the goal is, like in every situation with our students with IEPs, is that they receive their instruction in the least restrictive environment. And so the expectation would be that our EL students would be receiving ELD in the mainstream classroom with their English learner peers. So reclassification criteria, so this is what we are bringing forward to you. So just to make sure we all are on the same page, so there, as I mentioned earlier, there's a new language assessment that we are implementing here in California, and that's the LPAC, the English Language Proficiency Assessment for California. And this is only the second year that we've been implementing that new language proficiency assessment. And so when we transitioned to the LPAC, there wasn't a directive yet from the state in terms of what we should be using to reclassify students. And so the state allowed every district to come up with their own criteria. As of January of this year, we now have state board adopted criteria for LPAC. And that is an overall score of 4, which means well developed. And so that is the consistent criteria that is expected throughout the state. There is no flexibility there. That is the state criteria. All students, in order to be reclassified, must first demonstrate that they have have well-developed skills in English, so that they have an overall 4 on the LPAC. So unless students can demonstrate that, we can't even consider them for reclassification, regardless of how well they do in the classroom, regardless of how well they do on the SBAC. The LPAC is the first indicator or criteria that they must meet. And so that's really important for students to understand, parents to understand, teachers to understand, is that the LPAC is super critical to the reclassification process. And so I'm really proud of the fact that we have really taken some critical steps to make sure that we are providing an optimal testing environment for students, because, like I said, they have one shot a year to demonstrate their language proficiency. And so so we've done that. And the other thing that I really want to make sure everyone knows is that this year, over the summer, we invited teachers to participate in testing with the initial LPAC, because now there are 2 tests. There's an initial LPAC and the summative. The initial is only given once per year to new students, but the summative is what we give every spring. And so we've invited teachers over the summer to get trained in the initial, and we had teachers that came forward and tested. And they came back and just raved about the experience. And we just thought, how wonderful for teachers to know exactly what students are expected to do, where they have, how demanding the test is, and where students are struggling. And so we thought that would be great for them to know that for the summative as well. So we invited teachers again to come on a voluntary basis to come and learn about how to administer the LPAC and summative, and to actually administer it to their own students. Because we know that students do better, perform better when they know the individual that's testing them, and they have a relationship with them. And so even though our outside examiners do a fabulous job and our family engagement facilitators do an excellent job, there really is nothing like having the teacher who actually is responsible for the instruction to see what kind of challenges the student has in an assessment. So I was really happy to see that we had lots of teachers that volunteered and came to that training and gave the test to their own students. So I just want to commend those teachers for doing that. But the second piece of the puzzle is that teachers must look at the student performance of basic skills assessment. And so that is the basic skills assessment that we are using currently, and that we've included in our criteria is there's multiple assessments, and I believe you have it in your packet, but it's the developmental reading assessment and the Let's Go Learn at the lower grades. And then once we have SBAC scores, we are using the SBAC scores, Let's Go Learn, to determine whether students are proficient or not, or have the basic skills, excuse me. So, and then of course we must consult with the parents and inform them. So that is our reclassification criteria, and I'm hoping that we can approve that as well so that we can make that official. And then I want to just share with you how we're doing with our reclassification process. And so we have been using this reclassification criteria. Like I said, the CDE has allowed every district to create their own criteria. And so we were aligned with what Sacramento was doing, what San Francisco was doing. We try to align ourselves with the larger districts to make sure that we were not, that our expectations were high, but not too high, because the federal program review monitors or reviewers want to make sure that we don't have a higher expectation for our English learners than what our English-only students are performing at. And so you have to look at what your English learners are, your English-only students, how they're performing, and take the median, and then not expect more from your ELs than what your English-only students are doing. And so here's some data from almost 4 years ago. And at the elementary level, our reclassification rate was at 8.2%. At the secondary level, we were 10.5%. The county average was 10.9%, and the state was 11.2%. So we were below both the county and the state 4 years ago. We've worked really hard. I just want to commend the teachers for their hard work in the classroom, because it makes a huge difference. I want to commend our parents for understanding how important the language proficiency assessment is, and our family engagement facilitators, our SOL counselors. I mean, this is just like this is a team effort, right? It takes a village. And so these are reclassification rates from last year. Our elementary is now at 21%, 16% at the secondary level. At the county average is 14.5 and state is 14.6. So we have surpassed both the county and the state. And I'm just really, really proud of the work that our entire district is doing on behalf of our English learners. And just this year, as of January, as of last month, we have reclassified 500 elementary students and nearly 300 at the secondary level. So just in one semester, we've already identified 800 students that have met our reclassification criteria. So really proud of the work of our district. And of course, it's not where we want to be. We have a lot more to do, but we are striving for progress and not perfection. We will never be perfect, but I'm convinced that we can always do better, and so we're going to keep at it. And thank you.
Thank you for that report. It's an action item, so we need a motion for discussion. Or actually, does anyone have any specific questions of staff? Director Fong.
Director, would you say that the new classification, was the new classification, go back a slide, the improvement, was that's on a new classification, and back in the other slide you had was on the old classification model?
So in 2015-16, we were using the CELT, which actually isn't quite as rigorous as the LPAC, so that makes me even more proud of the fact that we're doing so much better, because this was based 2015 and 16, we were still using the California English Language Development Test, which is much easier than the current LPAC.
But also teacher recommendation, and also parent, and also external academic measure?
And it's actually not teacher recommendations. So this was made clear to us in the federal program monitoring review. It's looking at the scores. If the students are meeting the criteria, it's basically a review of the basic skills assessment. So they don't have to say, I agree or disagree. It's if they meet the criteria, they meet the criteria. So does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Director Sheffield.
Just to follow up on that, in the 2015-2016, were we using the same assessment standard as the county?
That's a really great question. So the one consistent criteria statewide is the California English Language Development Test. That score was consistent. For the basic skills, every district had the right to create and has the right to create their own criteria for the basic skills. And so what we expect students to do is we look at what our English-only students are doing in terms of how they did on the Let's Go Learn, how they did on the SBEC, and took the average score and had that be the criteria for our English learners. So it's the standard nearly met. It's the median score of the standard nearly met, which is what most of the larger districts are using. So it's pretty consistent, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's consistent with other districts in the county.
Well, what's really impressive and stands out is not only did we surpass the county and the state, but they were moving up as well. So we were moving double time, and it's very impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Manier, you have a question?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Going back to one of the corrective actions here on the presentation, English language development. Considering the course proposals that we just accepted, how does that impact sections at the high school level?
It's a great question. So it will impact sections some because English learners, until they're reclassified, must have a designated ELD period. And so that's one of their periods, and our high schools have 6 periods a day. And so it will affect how many electives they can take, or if they can take an elective, because designated ELD will take the place of an elective. And so that's really important information to make sure that our parents know. So I actually held 4 parent nights where we invited all of the feeder districts to come, and I really wanted to make sure that our parents, so we invited all 6th, 7th, 8th grade parents from our feeder districts to come and listen to, this presentation. And I did it before the LPAC testing, or the LPAC window, because I wanted them to make sure that they could relay to their children how important this test is. So, because a lot of times some of our students think it's not really that important, it's not tied to my grade, and so they don't give it the importance that it really merits. And so, we held 4 different nights to make sure that parents could come to one of them and get that information, because a lot of our students they do well on the SBAC, but because they haven't met the LPAC, it doesn't matter. They can't be reclassified until they meet the state's criteria of overall 4 on the LPAC.
Okay, now it's an action item, so I'll call for a motion, and then if we want to discuss, we can.
I'll move item F2, English Learners Program and Service Update and approval of the new classification criteria.
Second.
Moved by Director Sheffield, second by Director Fong. Is there discussion on the item? Director Fong, did you have something to say?
This is kind of a have to. It's California Department of Ed law. We're in compliance. Good. And we're doing better, yes.
Yeah. I'll say I do want to congratulate you on really remarkable improvement, really impressive. I mean, those are impressive numbers, and it must be, the result of, work of your staff with a good plan, but really teachers in the classroom and engaging parents and the support staff who all work together to achieve these great results for our students. And appreciate you including the teachers' feedback in determining which programs are preferred and to move forward with. And also, I love that using teachers more for the assessments and training them to do that. That's really, it's critical. So really great work on this, on really important work. Director Manieri.
I also want to say that I'm really impressed by kind of the holistic approach to this, because I know that after students are reclassified, there's this whole ceremony and the students receive the certificates, and Rafael Vasquez is a part of this process. And so I just want to say that is so awesome that the students are like, I understand that you're saying that it's a process getting them to understand that this is a really important thing, if they want to really excel. And I think that it's really great to kind of give them that big picture and to really celebrate their achievements at the end. I think that that's a really holistic approach to this, and I commend you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Don't commend me, because this is really, the teachers are responsible for this success, and so I think it's a partnership between the parents and the teachers, and they're doing the heavy lifting and providing all of the scaffolds and supports that our English learners need. So just super proud of the work that's happening in the classroom.
Superintendent, do you have something?
I do. I think this goes back to what you talked about, Director Monieri, about how it impacts sections. The work that we're doing and will continue to do with our feeder districts is hugely important, such that we're identifying and reclassifying as early as possible, so that students can have a full array of classes when they hit the middle school. So I think that collaboration, that articulation is going to be hugely important as well.
Director Sheffield.
Maybe just also encourage to share our successes with the other districts. The initial LPAC summer experience that you talked about, was this something that was created or initiated by the district? Were other districts doing this? Were other...
No, so that's been a real disconnect, I think, and it's been one of my kind of frustrations, because it's really hard for teachers to do their own testing, but it's so critical to really supporting students, because if you don't know what kind of challenge, first of all, what is expected of them, that was eye-opening for our teachers when they saw, like, wow, they were asking them to do this, and some of our English-only students can't do that. And so I think there's a real need to have teachers to really understand the LPAC and to administer it, just because you get so much information. But there's a lot of logistics that impede that, and so most of the districts hire outside evaluators like we do.
Yeah. Well, I just see opportunity for sort of a best practices approach here. Thank you.
Director Fong.
I'm very interested in hearing more in the future, Superintendent, about the integrated ELD, access to grade level content, and how it's going to be affecting all core classes, teachers, what they're going to be asked to do, and how we're all with A to G and everything. So, bring that back to us when it's time.
Yeah, we'll give you an update as it relates to the policy.
Okay, so we have a motion by Director Sheffield, seconded by Director Fong. We have a roll call vote, please, Laurie.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Manieri? Aye. President Close?
Aye.
Director Mackin?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, F3, discussion item, federal program monitoring.
President Close, board members, Superintendent Kitamura. Speaking of FPM, this is the overarching follow-through report that was just spoken about in the last presentation. So this incorporates the federal program monitoring. One of the areas that incorporates is English language learners, for which we just had a presentation. So this is the more macro view of that. I first want to acknowledge my colleague who is not here. Apparently she's not able to get off the island that is now Guerneville. So Sarah Crank. Sarah Crank was our coordinator in that position last year. It was reduced with budget cuts last year. However, she's been on helping us go through this FPM. So she would be my partner tonight. Best of luck to you, Sarah, getting to school and everything tomorrow. With that being said, a little bit about what federal program monitoring is. It is the method where federal law is given authority to the California Department of Education, CDE, to monitor the categorical programs that are given funding to Santa Rosa City Schools. Our part then, the FPM, works with actual school sites and oversees and makes sure that they're doing the requirements of each of the areas that they're responding to. The 4 areas that they respond to are what's called compensatory education. Those are the title programs, Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IX. Those are the main ones we focus on. CTE, career technical education. educational equity, and then English learners. So those are the areas that are reviewed by CDE. Now, of course, this is separate from reviews in special education, which happen on a whole different realm, which we spoke to a couple meetings ago. The process now is basically the team, the FPM team, and there's FPM site teams that also develop, show their paperwork on how they are monitoring and making sure they are complying. It gets uploaded through a process that CD now reviews online. So that's physically what happens here. And the school site. Of all our schools, these secondary schools were chosen in these following areas. So as an example, LC Allen, they were looking at their title programs, the English learners, and CTE. Comstock Middle School was just chosen in their FPM for ELs. Santa Rosa High School, CTE and title programs, and the district was responsible for the educational equity practices. What does CDE look for when they come out, and in this case, looking at the title programs, compensatory education? The big thing that we look for is that if you've probably heard this language before, supplementing, not supplanting. So we have to provide base-funded programs in all our work, and then title programs can be additional programs or additional services, equipment, and other things. So that's the main thing they're coming out to look at. We're the positions, the people, the supplies, the trainings, supplemental to existing district practices. Inventories must be accounted for, so Title I, things bought with Title I are used on Title I students. And the great thing about there is the school can become a school-wide title program, and therefore you don't have to simply say they can only, these 5 students in this class can sit in front of this computer, and most of our schools are. We have another one that'll be coming, Title I, and that makes the expenditures very accountable and easy for all participants. And last piece about parent notifications, participation, all those are key components of any of the title programs, and CD is looking for that kind of participation in those notices. And what they do is they're looking at, just like we do with our cycle of inquiry, they're looking at the same kind of cycle of what happens. The district-wide has a plan, the district has a plan on how we're gonna implement our title programs. It is incorporated into the SIPSA. The SIPSA, through something called a consolidated application, designates what they're spending their money on. It's reported in the California reporting system, and we come back to student activities. Each of those areas are examples of what the CD looks at when they come in for a Title I program review. They're looking at school site councils in much detail. They want to see how that SIPSA evaluates the effectiveness of the money and the strategies that are being used by title dollars. They want to ensure that the low achieving students are at risk are receiving those funds. And they want to ensure, again, parent stakeholders are informed and involved in the process. That's one of the strong components that they look for. Just a quick aside, in our title overview, these are the dollar amounts that we receive from those 3 title programs. Summary of the findings from this report. In essence, the district must develop an effective process for review. What currently is happening is each school site in their SIPSAs have their own process, and they found that we needed to also, in addition to that, a tighter, better process that we develop district-wide an effective measure of what that processes at the school sites, how the students are achieving, how we are making our title dollars work for the money for the students that are intended for. We have to do a better job of verifying parent notifications and involvement. This is an example of, ensuring that letters went out to title parents or EL parents to come to meeting notices. And some of the findings that were reviewed that we weren't able to prove that these 100 letters went out to these families, as an example. And one of the things we'll be working on with our new electronic systems, that's one of the great benefits of the things we'll have from online. We can do that much easier with much more verification. Parent notices, agendas, and sign-in sheets. There are a couple of instances where that wasn't all quickly documented and available, and we have to do a better job of that. And then, like I mentioned, we have to ensure that individual sites have a monitoring cycle of review process where they're monitoring, they're reviewing, and they're evaluating how those students that are receiving the title dollars are meeting academic proficiencies. In career technical education, when they come out and do a federal program review, they're looking for evidence that the program is promoting non-traditional populations, these kind of programs. That would be your work-based programs, your simulated work-based programs. You can see examples of brochures and handouts and back to schools and open house and that we're promoting, that those programs and what used to be pathways are available. And then of course they want to see examples of how we're using the CTE money and the programs we have. And I do not have to tell the board the strength of our CTE program, the great work that Debbie Bettini and all her CTE folks have done. It is no surprise that that program passed at 100% compliance. So we have a great appreciation for Director Bettini and the work that everyone does there. They were the only group of the 4 that had 100% compliance. The next area is educational equity. This is an example of ensuring Title I dollars or Title IX dollars are spent appropriately. I put a couple graphics up there of just an example of the importance of Title IX and what it's done for women, as we so noted in our F item today, the importance of women history. There are significant gains, as you can see in the graphics there, of what's important. And just over the weekend, we had a female state wrestler. All great Title IX accomplishments. And so what they're looking for is that we are providing trainings about the importance of Title IX dollars, how Title IX should be spent, policies, that they are publicized, anti-discrimination policies, and anti-gender bias policies. They want to make sure that we have resources that were provided at school sites. So examples, LGBTQ pupils know of these rights, can access services, and can go to people and understand the anti-discrimination laws that are available to students. Similarly, with pupils that face bullying or religious affiliation bias, that there are notices that we have these trainings and policies in practice. At school sites, here's some examples of what they're looking for. And we also use community resources. We're able to help students identify community resources. So we may not have all those examples of all those services, but if we put notifications out, students know where to access. That counts as what the Department of Ed's looking for. Investigations and trainings, that's a huge issue of what they're looking for in educational equity. We've made a lot of progress in that. We are creating things like timelines and investigation templates for school sites. Our district-wide practice is pretty solid about what we've been doing in that, and we've made some strong improvements in the last 2 years. What we have to do in this finding is really make sure that happens at school sites and that there is the notification of an investigation and complaints are handled at the lowest site possible. And you see a piece there about complaint forms, of course, being translated in the language that our families speak. We have to continue to address our board policies and make sure we're updating them with all the laws that come out and frequently change. We want to make sure we have consistent, timely, and decentralized investigation trainings, and we have unbiased and non-discriminatory training in school materials. And so those are very explicit things we have to do in like our parent notifications and other things we provide at schools. We just are making sure those notifications are published. The other thing mentioned previously about Title IX is a look at our expenditures in Title IX dollars and ensuring that our athletic programs are without gender bias. And that's an issue that is going to be a subject of an OCR investigation as well, that we are going to be coming back with perhaps some policy changes. And it is a high-flying concern of many folks to make sure that we're providing equal access of facilities, primarily in facilities and how our funds are being spent equally.
And that includes donated funds.
Yes, that's one of the policy
we provide, but
yes,
it's the donation booster funds as well.
Yes, and we'll have more coming back in the future on that. And then we have to make sure that we are properly notifying, getting back to our electronic notifications, those 3 bullets that are very significant and important, that we make sure that everyone is aware that those are important policies that we provide. We just discussed EAL and what they do, and then we talked about making sure that they have access to the core core classes. You have to look at the EL program effectiveness, which you just saw slides and graphics of the improvements we've made. English language learner identification and assessment process are things that we have to come back with. And the PD that is specific to English learners that Director Roma Flores was describing of how we're training people on our ELDL curriculum and the integrated approaches. They also will look at our reclassification process, parent notification participation, and again, as you saw before, supplementing and not supplanting funds. So you saw similar things about sign-ins and inventories and adjustments between accounts, meaning making sure they were not supplanting personnel funds and make sure they're used on EL students. We had evidence of waivers that were missing from SBAC, and so what that is, as we all know, we did not take SBAC, and we did not get the waiver from the federal government that we expressed, and that became a finding for us. So we show them the letter now, and we try to clear that finding, but that's one example of what we got found. We had a finding on. We got found. And then some other things that we know that we're in the middle of. CT does not need that. Congratulations again. This is an ongoing piece. We are working through these resolutions. We're ongoing and uploading every day, clearing our findings in these various areas. We have another deadline on some of these areas on March 15th. Should we need more extensions, they grant this. And this, what this is becoming is really an ongoing cycle of making sure we are reviewing, we're updating. Every year there are law changes that require us to change our parent notification and our letters, our discriminatory practices letters and everything like that. So what we're finding is this is not a one and done process. This really needs to be an ongoing piece. And in my last graphic, I talked about a puzzle of compliance. And what I mean by that is it is just something we slowly have to do better and put all our different areas. But as an example, this FPM was not related to special education, but you know we have special education findings similarly. One of the things we recognize is we need to do a better job of working with our school sites to help them understand compliance and review, and not just take it as a things we have to do, but how it evaluates program effectiveness and how it is a part of the cycle of improvement, and really do, I think, a good job of working with our school sites to make sure that they understand that and it becomes a part of how they do business and not just check a box. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Thank you. Before I take any other questions or comments, I just want to express that I'm really glad that the government found out that our superintendent and staff and teachers care more about our kids' education and mental health post-wildfire than they do the SBAC. So I'm glad they found that out. Good discovery. Any other questions or comments? Director Sheffield.
You know, this is a really important issue. This was the CE finding summary, the verification for parents. And we talked about the use of the electronic system. And yeah. You know, here we've identified an area that we know we need to work on. And so what I would like to see is, you know, us continually monitoring this, and maybe some feedback to us how effective it is in this particular area, you know, whether it's for these findings. But one thing that I hear consistently from parents is we just didn't hear enough. Yeah. More information, more use of user-friendly, whether it's website, whether it's, you know, the new electronic system, everything that we can do to give parents more information the better. And that's just across the board, but here's one area that we know that we need to focus on, do a better job.
I'd agree. Just like teaching students with different modalities, we have the same thing with parents and notifications. Could be by phone, could be by text, could be by the flyer system that we have, the peach jar flyers. There's a number of ways, and I think we're really at a good point to be able to use all those efficiently, effectively, and then for CDE purposes, we can document that we did those things. Exactly.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? All right, well, thank you for your report and for all your good work. I know this is a lot to keep up on, and it's important, and I appreciate that what I'm seeing for you is that there's effort to comply, but also for sort of constant improvement in the areas identified, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, L4 discussion item, the LCAP survey.
Good evening again. Just going to give you a little update. We have a little bit of a change this year to our LCAP survey, and so wanted to provide the board with some information. As you know, the LCAP process is not done in a silo. It involves many stakeholders. We have to consult with teachers and principals and administrators and other school personnel, local bargaining units, parents and pupils in developing a local control accountability plan. And this is done many different ways through our school sites, through DAC, which is our established parent advisory committee. Each month, Diane meets with a group of parents, representatives from all the schools, and we talk about different data points, we talk about concerns, we talk about how we're doing with our LCAP metrics and things that we can improve upon, and we try to listen, and we always give time at the end for them to ask questions to Diane. We also have to provide opportunities for public input. So as part of the process, once the LCAP is written, it's actually sent to sites, and parents are able to look at the LCAP. We also have something called the Stakeholders Unity Network, where we bring in some of our stakeholder partners, and they have an opportunity to look at our LCAP and see how we're doing with our metrics, and also how we're moving forward and things that we're adjusting as we have changed over the last, I guess it's 5 years now, or 6 years, that this has been our new funding formula. It's hard to remember a time before. For the last several years, we've used Thought Exchange as our survey. 2 questions are asked. What are some of the things that are going well, and what are the things that we can focus on to improve, support students in their student learning? Stakeholders have a chance to share their ideas and then react to what people are saying and then discover what's important to our community. What's going to be different this year is this actual Thought Exchange is going to be used for parents and stakeholders for students who are in TK through 8th grade. And I'll tell you why in just a second. Because the other survey we're going to use is something called Youth Truth. And this is a grant that was given to us by the CT Foundation and the Community Foundation of Sonoma County, that our 5 comprehensive high schools and Ridgeway can participate in this different type of survey, and many districts are using this actually as their LCAP survey, so this will be for grades 9 through 12. And their focus will be on engagement, rigor, relationships, and cultures. And for many, have actually also used this in place of the Healthy Kids survey, just another way to glean back information. So we're gonna have 2 opportunities here to really hear back from stakeholders, and I think that's gonna give us even more information back as we start writing the LCAP.
And if we can, one of the other advantages as we pilot this is we've also understood that there could be perhaps too many surveys and too many things going out. Teachers feel pushed upon by all those, and if we can combine an LCAP survey with a Healthy Kids survey, it really helps minimize those interruptions, and I think focus in the data becomes better with it.
I think the other advantage to piloting Youth Truth is it's real-time data that comes back to us in 2 weeks. I mean, we have to wait for Healthy Kids survey data, but we really appreciate the fact that it comes back so quickly.
Yeah, very excited about that. So our next steps, both surveys will be launched in March, and then in April we'll be able to share the feedback through some of the meetings I talked about through stakeholders. Steve and I will be beginning to craft the LCAP here. And on the 22nd of May, you'll get to see your first reading of the LCAP. And as always, we have to have a public hearing and then the final approval, which then goes on to our County Office of Education and then sent up to the state. So that's our timeline. And with that, I turn it back over to the board.
Thank you. It's a discussion item. Are there questions or comments? Director Manieri?
Will both of these surveys be conducted like in an online format, like you have to go to a link?
Yes, and so we'll also make sure that our sites can provide opportunities for parents to be able to take the survey on sites, and even being able to provide opportunities at some of these meetings as well.
And will both of them or either of them be in multiple languages?
Yes, in multiple.
Any others? All right, well, thank you so much for your report, for your work on this, for constantly trying to improve the LCAP process. I love that you're using Youth Truth. That's exciting. So we look forward to hearing back from you. Okay, F5, discussion item, Santa Rosa City Schools 2019-20 projected enrollment, finalized just on February 13th. Okay. I don't know if she's calling any. You ready? Sorry, I didn't know if we had any speaker cards. Again, good evening, President Klose, members of the board, superintendent, Assistant Superintendent Ensign, and I would like to share with you this evening an update on current enrollment projections and staffing. I do want to say current because this data is always changing. And we always want to make sure that it's accurate. And the lens for which we're going to frame this evening, as you can see, is equity is at the center of everything we do. And we could say that students are also at the center of everything we do. And when we look at gathering data that informs the decisions that we make, not only for staffing, master schedule, and the needs of course offerings, we're looking at the breadth and depth of those offerings for students. We're looking at the staffing needs for those students, and then the district goals are sort of all wrapped around that. So those are just some of the lenses that we're going to frame our conversation this evening.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Kitamura. As Assistant Superintendent Spector said, these are always in motion. And tonight is designed to give a first look at our enrollment projections now and as we go through the budget development cycle, along with new information that comes to us that adjusts these either up or down. We'll be bringing back this report and variations of with detailed data at that point throughout the spring and going into next year. Looking at this for enrollment and staffing, we're taking a look at enrollment projections that were finalized within the last couple of weeks for the 2019-20 school year, teacher total student contacts, retirements, resignations, non-reelection, temporary contracts, and both certificated and classified vacancies. With enrollment projections, some of the assumptions that we have and continue to have as we go through this year and into future years is declining enrollment at our elementary, middle, and high schools, as well as our charter schools. Although this year they're not in that mode totally because of the addition of classrooms for CCLA, the expansion to sixth grade, or excuse me, yeah, sixth grade in 2019-20. We also, with enrollment projections, for the first time that I remember, there was conversation between the business office and HR to ensure that the projections that we were using were the same for budget as they were for staffing. And with that, we looked at seabeds over a number of years in coordination with the demographic and enrollment study that Cooperative Strategies did for us, along with Decision Insight for enrollment projections, looked at the, I'll say the best and worst of the projections and how they impact school site, along with the other trends that we were able to see in order to come up with our initial numbers for enrollment projections for 19-20. This slide shows from 14-15 through our projection in 19-20, the enrollment of Santa Rosa City schools, not including charter schools and non-public schools. As you can see, we have steadily declined over those years. All numbers except for the last bar are our certified seabeds numbers for those respective years. 1920 is our projection as of February 27th. This slide shows all of our schools, including charter schools, and the projected enrollment for 1920. The right-hand column, if it is white, shows that they are remaining flat. Red is a decline in enrollment, and green is a increase in expected enrollment for 2019-20. As you can see, the majority of our schools are projected to continue into further declining enrollment moving forward. These numbers are important, especially this time of year as we are preparing for budget development along with staffing and section allocations. This is the basis for it. So as I mentioned, as we get information that may affect these numbers either positively or negatively, that will have an impact on section allocation at our middle and high schools and total enrollment and FTEs at our elementary schools.
So Rick just shared with you a little bit of the 60,000-foot view of some of the data that we use to inform our decision making. And so we want to bring this down to maybe the 30,000-foot level as we get to the ground level is some of the methodology for staffing. And I sort of geek out on this, that math is everywhere. And so we wanted to provide a very specific site-based example of how we use that enrollment data to make informed decisions about staffing. And so I'll let you take a look at that, but you can hopefully see how the filters of the 3 different lenses that Rick talked about that we triangulate actually get us down to not only how many students we need to serve, but how many staff we need to serve those students. So as we move forward, another lens that we use is the contract and the total student contacts. We have a per daily total student contact by contract. And then we have what actually happens. So we sort of call that butts and seats. And those are those lower numbers. And as at the bottom of the slide, and as you can see, over 88% of our teachers are under the full contractual student contacts. What we know is some classes, if you're looking at even a 33-to-1 in a class, on average, it might be 33 for each of your 5 sections, but we know that, sometimes there are classes that have 34 or 35 and another one has 27. So we're always looking at the total daily contacts, except in those areas such as a science lab where we're looking at a hard cap for issues of safety and security. That bottom line, I want to highlight the cost of overages. We know that first, we need to meet the needs of students, and we have to also be fiscally responsible. And so it is very important that we staff all of our classrooms to the maximum amount for what meets the needs of students, as well as staffing allocations that allow us to ensure that all of our classes are full. And that's the cost of overages since 2014. Our goal is for that number to be as low as possible because we're staffing appropriately. So these next few slides, you're going to see the retirements and resignations. We keep a seniority list. We're required to by law, and it's also just best practice. So we know how many staff we have. We know when they were hired, what are their credentials held, so that we can allocate them appropriately. As people retire and resign, we then use that information, again, not only to staff our classes, but to make sure that we're recruiting accurately and that we're also working with business services to make sure that fiscally we're being responsible. This list is not specific to the start of the school year, July 1. These numbers are accurate just to actually the last few weeks. And I can also tell you that as of today, these numbers have changed because we continue to receive resignations and retirements as people make decisions about their future. That goes to non-reelects. There are times when the relationship between a teacher and their content area or a teacher or student, sometimes there are people that just find that teaching is not something that is a fit for them. And so there are times we have non-reelects, and this represents that.
So these are some of our current vacancies, both in classified and certificated. The number of vacancies and the FTE, those numbers are different because some vacancies might be a 0.2, they might be a 0.4. Interestingly enough, in classified, we have some vacancies that are literally just an hour. And so when we look at staffing, we try to make full FTEs as much as possible, and we also try to make sure that they're funded from the same budget as much as possible, because even if you're looking at an FPM, it can be problematic if we're not accurately funding positions. And so we will continue to recruit for these, and we'll have those numbers for you. Where it says essential positions needed and there's that asterisk, those are ones that we've identified, such as math, special education, in the classified areas, child nutrition services, custodial, et cetera, that we know are essential as we go ahead and staff, and so those become a priority as well. Not to say that all others aren't important, but a priority.
And with that, we'll turn over to the board for questions.
Thank you. I have one speaker card before questions, and that's Jeff Gosby. You got to go up there. You can thank the city council for that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeff Gosby, and I'm a parent, resident, and member of your Budget Advisory Committee. I'm really glad that you're discussing enrollment, and I'm here because I'm very concerned about enrollment. I think it's one of the single most critical issues, and frankly, positive enrollment helps solve everyone's problem, because the more we can have students here, the more we need all of our staff and can pay them better and so forth. I gave you a short one-page sheet. I took the most recent CBEDS data, which goes back 8 years, and I just wanted to give you some things that I observed as you look at trends that are going on, because it can be a little misleading when you look at the district as a whole. On the second page, and what I put on here is the annual change in number of students and percent of students year to year from 2010 through the 2018-19 year. And things are very flat for the district as a whole. However, when you look in the different areas, what's most alarming is that our elementary districts have lost almost 1 in 5 students in the last 8 years. You see a 19% cumulative decline, 851 students, which is at least 2 school sites. Middle schools, you see, is flat in the most recent period, and cumulatively there's been 0 change in the last 8 years. High school district, also 0 change cumulatively in the last 8 years. There's one bright spot, which is the charters, but I recognize that the charters is less than 10% of our total enrollment, but we've added over 900 students in the last 8 years, so that has essentially kind of saved a lot of the attrition and loss that's happened in elementary. But I am concerned that the bigger issue is you have a big decline happening in elementary. We're seeing it in all the neighboring districts, and it's just a matter of time before all that shows up. It'll hit the middle schools first, and then it's going to hit the high school district. So I would really encourage you as much as possible. First of all, you do have some schools, the charters, there's a lot of demand. People have wanted choice. I think it's great. It's a dependent charter model, and it's good as a whole. I would encourage you to keep and have as much enrollment there. Obviously, we want to support all of our schools, but I think tackling enrollment as well as keeping the highest percent attendance possible is going to be key, and I just really wanted to highlight this trend because I don't think we've seen nothing yet. I think that things are going to get a lot worse, not just because of the fire and housing costs and everything else, but we already see it happening in the elementary district. And then lastly, I think it's critical for this board to consider increasing its reserve. At a minimum, it should be doubled from 3% to 6%, because if we can't set aside more money now, we're never going to be able to set aside more money, and I'm just very concerned about what the consequences of that will be. So thank you.
Nicely timed. Questions, comments? Yeah, Director Manieri.
Could you speak a little bit more about the methodology for the enrollment projections? I'm just wondering if any of that data has been compared to like, what's that agency called? FICMAT? Like, I know that they can help with projections, so I'm wondering if there's been any comparison with that data.
We have not received projections from FICMAT, although in part of their review right now, they're looking over the business practices of many areas, including staffing and enrollment, to ensure that we're moving in a valid way, but they did not provide input into the projection numbers for any of our school sites.
But what we have looked at, and this is mentioned on the slide about data and the 3 enrollment data points that we're using, the seabeds that Mr. Gosby was talking about and where he pulled his data. Cooperative Strategies has done our demographic study, both for the switch to district elections, but they also did one, after that, they then did a full-blown demographic study that encompasses a lot of different elements, variables, and factors. And then the third, which I think we should do in demonstration for the board, is Decision Insight. This is a very, very powerful online platform that we can see many of the trends that Mr. Godsby's talking about. We can see through Decision Insight. Not only is our enrollment declining, as he stated, but it's very interesting to see what the racial demographics are doing and how they're changing. We just looked at a school, because of the meeting we just had with Mark West and Santa Rosa City Schools, and the superintendent was extremely surprised that our white population is 36, around 36%. And so when we showed the actual demographics through Decision Insight, he was extremely surprised. And so those are the 3 things that we're depending on for demographics, for our projected enrollment. And I will tell you, when I first got here, it was literally a pencil and a yellow pad. And people can do that, but the problem for us coming in and taking over is we don't know what the methodology is. So now we have a method by which to get the projected enrollment. And then the other slide that I don't want us to slide over, the other slide I don't want you to slide over, sorry, lots of negotiations, I'm tired, is the methodology for staffing allocations. This too was in someone's brain, but not really provided a method by which we could actually calculate from projected enrollment to FTE. So this calculation is done for every one of our sites. And then we do meet with the principal, because a methodology or a calculation is a calculation, but we know there are different needs and things that happen at a site where we might have to bump up a few sections, or maybe we've had a high school give back sections. So this is, again, I think it's something that the staff should be proud of. And I really want to shout out our principals. Our principals have worked so hard on ensuring that their classes each of their classes are staffed and the rosters are as full as they can. And as we go through some of the things we're going through with declining enrollment, you'll see another presentation at our next board meeting about what does that actually look like. What does that look like for schools? Because if there's not enrollment, that means there's a reduction in staff. So that'll be the next board meeting.
I'd just like to clarify Superintendent Campbell's comment. There was another tool that was mentioned, and it's actually 5Site by Forecast 5 that is able to provide some demographic outlook for us in an easy-to-use format that I'd be happy to present to the board at a future board meeting, along with the capabilities of Decision Insight that has the ability to help us with projections moving forward based on the demographic data that they collect in the city.
Yeah, I think both of those would be a great demonstration and report for the board.
Thank you. I'm looking at the slide that says teacher total student contacts. And I see that we have many teachers at 119 or fewer student contacts when the contractual pretty much is 165 unless you're a PE teacher, and we're trying to keep special ed down. So the 143 secondary teachers at 119 or fewer student contacts, that includes the special ed teachers in there, I would assume.
It includes special ed. There's also electives in there, some of the courses that some people would call a zero period, a teacher's assistant, peer tutors, et cetera, that have historically had low enrollment.
Do we count teacher assistants or instructional assistants or TAs, do we count them as a student contact?
Yes.
So it looks like there is room to reduce, and there is room to reduce, but when we're talking master scheduling, we can't make those master schedules too tight because there's this like balance point, right? Otherwise you can't serve our, excuse me, serve our students and help our teachers, and we understand that, yeah.
Very much so, and that goes to Superintendent Kitamura's point that there's a methodology, and I would also say some madness to this, and what I mean by that is, yes, there's the numbers, but we also know we need to talk about students and teachers and what are those needs. And so when there are sites that are piloting or putting forth really innovative programs and opportunities that they want to try on, we need to support that. We know that there might then need to be additional sections or additional staffing to honor the work that staff are doing on site working with our kids. And so it's not finite, it's just one of those data points.
And then when we add in integrated ELD, those will affect these numbers as well.
Integrated ELD, the supports that we continue to provide for A through G implementation for students, the opportunity for students with CTE within, lab classes, we know that that affects not only the section allocation, but the student enrollment within those might be lower.
Thank you.
And you can also see on the slide for staffing allocation, to your point of ELD, there's projected to be 84 designated ELD students at Comstock Middle School, keeping the ratio at 25:1 equals 3.4 sections that were allocated to Comstock, just for the example that you were mentioning.
So it's above and beyond their actual allocation.
Okay. Really appreciate the report and your work on this. It is really great to have a methodology in place for both of these, issues, both in enrollment projection and staffing allocation, because it's really important, for us to be able to operate efficiently. There's this myth of that if we just attract a whole bunch more students, that necessarily means we have more money, and it doesn't. It means there's more ADA coming in, but it's about how efficiently we manage that enrollment and that staffing. And obviously we want to increase enrollment to the extent that there are children out there, people vote with their feet, and so we want to be the ones that are attracting their vote. And also recognize, though, that there is a declining enrollment, across the county, and particularly with the younger kids, probably because it's expensive to live here. And there also is a trend throughout the county where their charter school enrollment is increasing and elementary enrollment is decreasing. And so we do reflect those trends that are countywide, although it might be a little bit more extreme in our district. But it's great that we're being able to drill down on that to really help plan and make sure that we're making efficient use of our staffing and our enrollment so that we can pay our staff as much as possible. It would be, I really would like to see the reports that Director Edson and or Assistant Superintendent Edson and Superintendent talked about, and also a finer breakdown of those 119 sections, or the under 19 below sections. It would be interesting to see that, because we do have to have some flexibility to support some things that are necessarily going to be low.
Yep. We will have those as attachments to the next report at the next meeting.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So we will move to our last item of the night. At 8:30. Oh my goodness, we're. Wait. Don't jinx it. I don't think we've gotten out of here before 11 for a while, so. I mean, do you have anything else to do? Do you want to just stay? Should we, no? No. Right. You might not be able to get home, or you need to get home. We can just, we can just sleep over. Okay, F6, an action item approval of Cicero for assistance with Proposition 39 energy efficiency projects.
Good evening, President Close, Superintendent Kitamura, members of the board. To my right is Mike Braff, Director of Facilities, and Beth Brose, who is one of our consultants that works with our facilities program. Tonight, Mike will be going over the selection of Sizerco for Prop 39 energy efficiency projects.
Good evening, Superintendent Kitamura and board. I want to go over the background process of what we did to how we put out and published our qualifications, requests for qualifications, I should say. So this program will identify, budget, bid, and oversee the construction of energy efficiency projects on 15 sites within the district. And on November 14th, 2018, we published a request for qualifications for experienced energy service companies. On November 29th, we had responses from 3 qualified firms, Sizerco, Train, and IES. Staff reviewed each submission and found that all were experienced firms. The final selection was based on the following: experience, location, and staff availability, existing relationship to the district, recommendation from PG&E, and clear results. Both firms whom the district was currently working with on the energy projects. In the evaluation, award, and agreements section of the RFQ, it was clearly stated that the district reserves the right to select respondent based on overall best fit for the district's needs. Staff concluded that Sizerco was an overall best fit. With that said, we're recommending that the board approve Sizerco to move forward to help assist the district in accomplishing this goal.
Thank you. I have 5 blue cards, starting with Jose Casas, I think, then Jennifer Butler, followed by John Burdette. So if we can queue up, that would be great. Jose, go ahead.
Y'all can see me, right?
Yep. Or you can also do that and we can see you better.
By the way, that was a long meeting.
That was a long meeting? Oh man, you have no idea. This is like a meeting light.
Anyways, good evening and thank you for the attendance, of course. My name is Jose Casas and I represent the electrical workers in, here in Local 551 in Santa Rosa. I am here tonight to speak on behalf of the union and one of our signatory contractors, which is Sizerco. As a contractor in good standing within our local jurisdiction, as well as other IBW locals in the Bay Area. Sizerco has demonstrated that they are a good union contractor, that they are, of course, and hires local area residents. In addition to a strong local hire policies, Sizerco employs young people from within our local communities, and in conjunction with the union apprenticeship training program, they give them the classroom and on-the-job training needed to create union tradesmen and tradeswomen alike that work and live here in Santa Rosa and also our local cities. They also hire local union subcontractors to ensure that the people that are building our great community can afford to live here, own homes here, and raise their families here, of course, in the wonderful place that we all live in here in Santa Rosa. And also, please, I encourage you all to approve CICERCO on the agenda F6. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Butler, and then John Burdette.
Good evening, Board. Superintendent Kitamura. I came to you in December presenting some information which I had hoped would compel you for reconsideration of award to CICERCO for the remaining Prop 39 work. And I wanted to redirect your attention back to my original documentation. There's not a lot different information that I want to share with you. I feel that an analytical consideration of your own scoring matrix is substantial evidence enough that the consideration should be reconsidered. I want to bring to your attention the scoring matrix here, which I handed out to you. I want to make sure that you understand that we are contesting the scores in boxes 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, and what I didn't bring up to you at the last meeting was in item 13. It says here that there was going to be given more points for local representation. As you know, we have 26 local Santa Rosa residents and 71 in Sonoma County. I wanted to talk to you about this criteria and encourage you to look at our considerable experience versus the existing, to consider that we are actually turnkey in all components, including the mechanical component, which is a very big one, reminding you that should that not be a turnkey self-performing contractor, that is going to be an additional layer of costs that the district will absorb. I wanted to remind you about our substantial bonding capacity, our nationally recognized safety record, and our ability to perform these services substantially with much more experience and capabilities. I also wanted to challenge, beyond that, the item number 12 in the scoring matrix, which I didn't talk about last time. We have never been given the opportunity to demonstrate our talents. As we mentioned before, it's very unusual that there is no interview, and it's very unusual that there is no job walk. So to give a escalated point there doesn't seem appropriate. So if those points were recalculated according to...
Thank you. John Burdette, then John, oh man, I did this before, but I don't remember. McIntegart. John Burdette.
Mark Cassette, go. Hello, my name is John Joseph Burdette III. I'm the Director for the Facility Solutions Division at Indoor Environmental Services. I have over 23 years experience in this industry, specifically in Northern California. I'm a certified energy manager and a certified demand side manager. I'm compelled to speak after I hear about all of the budget issues that you have here at your district. Our concerns are that there have been a lot of red flags with this solicitation. We believe the IES, backed with evidence, is the most qualified candidate to implement your Prop 39 work. Our goal is not to force you to do business with us, but we feel that our statements have been falling on deaf ears. We understand that CICERCO had information which we consider to be an unfair advantage before and after the bid documents were issued. As Jennifer mentioned, there was no interview, no job walk to let the other respondents familiarize themselves with the district. We were so baffled that with the local presence that we have here in the city and in the county, how we could have lost this with districts, over 240 of them across California selecting us, that we requested the documents via the Public Records Request Act. which were not provided in a timely fashion. And when they were, the dates of the files were created on the days that we requested them, or they were provided. Our cost structure is less, as pointed out in your scoring matrix. And I'd also like to provide a challenge to the recommendation from PG&E and Clear Results, as they are not able to provide preference to vendors. The California Public Utility Commission maintains a vendor-neutral policy, which PG&E and Clear Results have to adhere to. We have checked in with them to make sure that nothing has changed, and we have provided letters or emails of them confirming that they are not able to make those recommendations. It has also come to our attention that some of the Siserco sales reps have had long-standing relationships, I would say, both at the County Office of Ed, some family members, and there may be a conflict of interest. In the RFQ, the district reserves the right to select more than one company to foster healthy competition. Indoor Environmental Services offers healthy competition, lower cost structures, and will offer greater economic stimulus to your community, your constituents who voted you into your positions where you sit today. We offer non-proprietary solutions that can be procured through multiple companies, not just one. We are hopeful and encourage the board to do the right thing and allow our company, your community members, the chance to participate in this project by voting no to approve Siserco. Thank you.
Thank you. John McIntyre and Dale Andrew, then Will Lyon.
Good evening, board. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is John McIntyre, and appreciate giving that a shot. And I am the business manager with IBEW Local 550, and that's the local electrical union here. Our office is here in Santa Rosa. Our apprenticeship is here in Santa Rosa. Most of our members live here in Santa Rosa, and Siserco is one of our good contractors, and we'll be hiring our members and put them to work. We really appreciate that. We appreciate the staff's recommendation to go with Siserco. We think all these contractors are fine contractors. We work with all of them, Train, IES, and Siserco, and we appreciate all of them, what they have to bring to the table. We just like the fact that staff picked Siserco, and we think you should stick with Siserco. Local apprenticeship programs here include the Plumbers Apprenticeship Program in Santa Rosa. There's only two here in Santa Rosa. That's the electricians and the plumbers. When Siserco, if they need other services, they're going to hire union contractors to do those services, whether it be the sheet metal workers or the plumbers. And they will be utilizing those apprentices also from those respective programs. You know, we live in an unsustainable career being in construction. You know, our job is to work ourselves out of a job. That's our job. And if you think about that, then trying to maintain a workforce that thinks that they're out of work at the end of that job is difficult. So what we ask of awarding agencies like you is to provide work for them, us, you know, continuous work. Another job waiting, basically, is what a construction worker wants to know. And this will ensure apprentices going through our program will be here in Santa Rosa working on the schools they probably went to school in. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you say your last name one more time?
I got a minute, 20 seconds. I can say it for a minute, 20 seconds.
Just one more time, and I'm going to lock it in.
McIntyre.
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 Yeah, thank you.
No tiger. Thank you. Dale Andrew and then Will Lyon.
It's a privilege for me to come speak to you again. I was at your last board meeting. I wanted to just be the face of the workers, the union workers. As you'll recall in their last meeting, we had the sheet metal workers business agent and we had the UA pipe fitters business agent speak. And they spoke about how important it was to have union-trained labor, that talent that could execute your work. And they basically, that was what was important to them, is that you hire contractors that were union-trained, that could provide you the best value. And so I work for IES. I grew up in Santa Rosa. I went my entire school that I attended was in Santa Rosa School District. I have 3 sons that all attended Santa Rosa School District. They're sheet metal workers. 2 of them work for IES. When you hire IES, you will be hiring my family. You'll be hiring qualified talent that's union trained, and just like the electrical union representative stated, that we too will hire other subcontractors that are also union, and we would gladly hire Sizerco to help you with your project, but we would like to be involved in a lead role, as we are a very qualified, full service engineering and execution from beginning to end. We can execute your work for you and give you the best value. We can get more done for your money, and that should be important. That's something that's very important to us, as we work with you very carefully to stretch those dollars to get the most done for you, and I've seen that done in our company on countless school projects. So I would just again reiterate everything that's been said by my coworkers here, that we be given that chance, that fair chance, to participate in this work in a leading role. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Will Lyon.
Good evening again. Will Lyon, President of the Santa Rosa Teachers Association. And I just wanted to say that I stand with the union brothers and sisters here that are asking for you to hire union work. I don't know enough about these projects or these vendors to recommend them over another one. In general, we should be looking to hire union work as much as possible. Over time, it costs less, it's safer, it's more sustainable, and it's the right choice for the families that are going to be doing that work who are bringing kids to our school. It's about income inequality, right? So if we're going to decide we're all social justice and then we're going to actively avoid hiring unions, that seems incongruous. And I mention it because a few months ago we had one of the 3F lawyers down here, and they were talking about a separate thing, but one of their bullet points was, that pros and cons, and one of the negatives was, well, if you go this way, you might have to hire more union people. And I was offended by that. Well, that's not a negative. It's okay. It's good to hire more union people. They do better work. And that's the same law firm that's in charge of negotiations, the 3F. It's the same group. So it makes me nervous that those are the lawyers that we're hiring. And then it makes me nervous that we're avoiding hiring union work when we all know that it's social justice reasons union do better for society and lift boats and income inequality and all that stuff. So I hope you'll take that into consideration as you make your choice tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Scott Meinzen.
Good evening, President KLOSE, Superintendent Kitamura, and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I am the General Manager of the Energy Solutions Division at Sizerco. For over 30 years, my father was a teacher at Hilliard Comstock Junior High. Before my sister and I arrived, my mom was a teacher at Santa Rosa Middle School and cook. I think you're in a great position that you've got a lot of people that really want to do a great thing for the district. And I want to thank the staff for the work that they did to select Sizerco. And I just want to tell you, it'll be a real honor to walk in room 86, where my dad worked for 30 years to make upgrades to provide energy efficiency for the district. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Let's public comment. Bring it back to the board for any questions or comments or a motion.
Question.
Director Fong, question.
Sizerco is a union company. Will be hiring union work?
Yes, that's my understanding, yes. But right now, as Mr. Edson has mentioned, Ms. Bros assists in the facilities department, and I've delegated her as the lead on this item, so I will have her answer any questions as she's taken the lead.
And if I may, am I on? Yes, they do have union employees, but we cannot dictate whether they use union or not. They've already stated that they will. But we have to be cautious in making those kinds of decisions based on whether they have union or non-union workers.
I just got very confused. Everyone's claiming
I'm sorry.
that they're, not by you. All the speakers are claiming they're all union, that they're supporting the companies, and we're only going union, but everybody's union, right?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Assistant Superintendent Edson, did you want to address something specifically?
Excuse me, I'll wait for more questions.
Okay. No? Director Manieri? There are no more questions, so do you have? No? Okay.
So prepared.
So if there are no more questions or discussion, then
I'll make the motion. F6, approval of Sizer Co. for assistance with Prop 39 energy efficiency projects.
I'll second that.
okay, moved by Director Sheffield, second by Director Fong. Roll call vote, please.
Director Sheffield? Aye. Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Manieri?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye.
Director Mackin?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries and meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Took a while to get there, but it went quick.